Hi, I'm Canoe, and welcome back to the show. Last time, a bunch of people in the comments got very mad, but I spent a lot of time thinking about if I wanted to respond or how I wanted to address that issue, and I realized I really didn't care as much as I did about making this project. So, everybody, welcome in and enjoy the video.
ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is defined as a chronic condition including attention difficulty, hyperactivity, and impulsiveness. Your boy has it. 3D printers and ADHD have kind of a weird relationship because I can print whatever I want to a point that it kind of feels like I'm wasting time if the printer is not running. So this results in backlog, and I have quite a bit of backlog of printed projects that I have yet to start painting, sanding, or anything. I'm going to show a couple that I have right now that one of which we're going to work on today. I have had printed for, I don't know, a year or so. Today we're going to be working primarily on this one, the Clone Trooper DC15-A rifle. As you can see, I've already started on this because I already started this project and lost the footage. Thank you, Past Dave. We are also going to be showing the steps we're taking today on Yoda's lightsaber. I want to eventually do a video on making a series of lightsabers, because if you've ever seen Star Wars, there's a certain lineage of Master and Padawan that spans the entire series and pretty much shapes the entirety of the series. So we may revisit that at a future date. This is a Clone Trooper backpack. We're not working on this today, but it is my oldest unfinished print because I think I printed this in the summer like 2 years ago. So we'll come back to this because it is on my list. I have the time to work on it now, so it'll get done. By the way, it is, let me see what my phone says it is outside. It is 32 degrees outside, and I'm at my parents' place because I don't have a garage. I was gonna just paint out in the yard, hence why I'm so bundled up, but my dad did not think I would get anything done because it just wouldn't dry. Thought it'd just take all day and then I'd get nothing done. Also, since it's cold, just off screen here, we've got an electric heater. You will probably hear the fan on it. You're just gonna have to deal with it. It's gonna be too cold in here for the paint to dry if I don't have some sort of heating source. So cold. Crank that bitch all the way up. There we go. I used to paint just directly on the table here. It's not advisable. I wouldn't advise anyone to do that because you can see it's covered in paint. So anytime I paint on it, the old paint would stick to the new paint and come up in flakes on the props. And it leaves ugly marks on the props. An example of this that I will show when I get back into the cutting room is my Cyberpunk Smart Pistol. You see that like mark of primer right there. It lifted it straight off this table. My thought when I bought this table was, oh yeah, like why would I ever want to mess with tarps? I could just get a shitty table and paint directly on it. It seems like it'd be a good idea on paper. It is not in practice. It sucks. You know, there's so many things where I'm like, this would be a lot easier if I had money. This is one of those things. I wouldn't have to sand props as much. Like get a better printer. I wouldn't have to like use my parents' garage because I could just own a space where I am allowed to do whatever I want. And instead I've got to like borrow things, scavenge from trash. One day. Doesn't help that I'm already like just recently coming off of a sinus infection. It's gonna be really annoying cutting out all the sniffing that I'm gonna be doing this episode. Hey Dave, how was your day off? Oh, good. I sat in the cold. I did some painting. Oh, why would you do that? Oh, I like it. You are the dumbest motherfucker. I know. YouTuber drama is such a weird concept. Oh, these people that talk for a living, like, did more talking, and people talked back at them. Huh? Watched Saltburn the other day. If you've heard nothing about it and you're seeing people post about the movie, it's a heartwarming film about a family adopting a new son, and then afterwards they're greatly rewarded by his presence, and he's like a great addition to their lives. You'll love it. You should watch the movie. You should definitely like post in my Discord about it afterwards too. I wanna know what y'all thought.
In order to map out how I address these projects and how the start to finish workflow goes, I've moved some clips from the end of the recording day more towards the front. So we can talk about, I did this so we can talk about all the steps involved with taking a raw 3D print and processing it into a sanded and painted prop in an order that makes sense, because it doesn't make any sense for me to explain the steps I'm taking at the end of the video. But on the day of shooting, it made much more sense for me to tackle the more time-intensive parts of the recording session first.
Yeah, so what we've got here, this print came out really good. So like sometimes a print like this with multiple interlocking parts, they just don't fit nearly this snug, and that's fine. It doesn't have to necessarily, but this came out really good. Like they all fit together super nice. I personally like to make my parts silky smooth before I start actually painting. That way, like all the ridges and the rough parts from where the supports were or like overhangs were are like polished out. That way it is just ready. But yeah, we have our parts. So typically we print the parts, we take them and we will sand them or use the glazing putty and then sand them. And from there, if there's finer detail that needs to be filled up or patched, then we go to the filler primer, and then we sand down the filler primer down to the plastics to where it's just filling in the holes and such, and then we sand it down with a smaller grit once like all the holes are filled. I can see this being an issue. This part has some surface imperfections that I want to touch up because these details are tiny, because this thing is tiny. It printed this side down so that I wanted this side to be cleaner, because that's just the way I've noticed my printer is. Like, this is all weird because that's what it looks like where the supports connect. In order to fix this, we're going to sand the underside with a rougher sandpaper, and then this side we will use filler primer in like the finest mist possible to fill in some of these divots and cracks left by the printer, and we're gonna go over it with like a 300 grit, then like a 1000 grit, just to get it silky smooth and make sure all the little areas are filled in. Went through my sandpaper stash here and found I have 4 and 600 in here, and then I've got, I think I have some 1000 in the shed. I'm sitting here with some 400, just gently scratching at this nut. I'm just trying to round out the edges. It's got a little bit of elephant's foot. I'll put some diagrams on screen so you can know what that jargon is.
I was able to sand the emitter smooth enough that I decided to skip glazing putty for now at least. That way I could move on to the next step, which is filler primer. This is your final sanding step, so you would just repeat this over and over, spraying it down, then sanding it off until you're satisfied with your sanding job.
Now that we've got the table covered, we're gonna go look at the parts here, and we're going to evaluate what we need to do to each one, assuming that I don't find any of the footage from the other day. We are going to start with the rifle where it is. I'm gonna show you what the next step is that I'm gonna do for it. Well, let's look at each part here. So we have the muzzle area. It's pretty well sanded. I think what I'm gonna do for this is hit it with some filler primer, and then we're gonna sand it with a low grit sandpaper. Then we're gonna work our way up. So let me go ahead and spray that so we can get started on this and it can dry while we do other things. First things first, a little point on safety. Whenever you're using power tools to sand 3D prints or working with spray paint, wear a mask. Especially like I'm in a garage, so I have airflow. And I can vent the air into the attic once I'm done to get rid of the fumes. But this will keep me more protected once I get started. So wear some sort of spray painting mask or something. This was like 20 bucks on Amazon. They're not that expensive. Okay, let's get to work. I should act like I'm a makeup influencer. Here we have automotive 2-in-1 filler primer, sandable, very important. It's hard to talk in this thing. I get so out of breath. I'm not the best at spray painting, but something like that. You ever realize that you're spraying paint towards an expensive camera? I realize that's kind of part of the job. So this piece has a similar problem. Well, it has a new problem. The part doesn't have a flat side for it to stand on end. So we're gonna have to do filler primer, then flip it, and then get the other side. Okay. How do I do this and let the camera see? Whatever. Okay. I'll touch that up later. It's not going to be perfect. Next up, we have the scope slash handle. This thing was pretty easy to use the power sanders on, so it's pretty good as well. So we're gonna filler primer that as well. What does Caustic even say? Is he a dick? I feel like I remember Caustic being a dick. I mean, he is kind of like a Nazi scientist or whatever the fuck. Oh, you're getting overspray on your parts. Oh, it doesn't matter, dude. I'm sanding this. Okay, so this one looks pretty good. This is the top side of the gun. It is pretty smooth. It's already on the dowel rod because I broke it once. So I'm going to have to, whenever I glued it back together, the dowel rod got stuck because I used it to line the two parts up. So that's fine. You know, it's not a big deal. I'll just cut the dowel rod, and then I think this will be filler primer as well, because I don't think I'm gonna get. I'll hit that part of the ridge with the mouse sander. Maybe I can get that a little smoother. Okay. Okay, that feels better. Bada bing, bada boom, done. All right, let's cut the dowel. There we go. Anything else need touched up before I primer this? Let me hit this side real quick. Alright, next part up, we've got this piece of like binding frame that like holds the part together. And like feeling it down, it looks and feels really good. What is that? I think this is as smooth as we're gonna get it with power tools, so shit. Da, 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 da. All right, looks good enough for now. Next up, this is the last of the long pieces. This is like a part of the barrel. It's just kind of like a middle piece where like rail and stuff kind of holds it in place. It feels good. I mean, same story as the others. I do a lot by just feeling the part and seeing how it is. There's a little rough edge right here from where this was supported because it printed like this. It's very small though, so it may be easier to get in there with sandpaper. So I like trimmed it a little bit with a razor, like from a box cutter, stabbed myself a little bit. And I should probably clean out that plug right there and before I hit it with the filler primer. There, that's a little better. This one seems all right. This is a pretty easy part to sand with power tools because it didn't need a whole lot. So I just kind of gave it a quick pass. All of these have ridges. That one needs to be smoothed out a little bit. So we will spray it.
Luke, I am your father. I never paid child support. Dude, my hands are sticking to that.
The site supervisor, Zaxby, the site supervisor, decided to pay me a visit. You want to say hi? He's not very talkative. One last piece that is ready for filler primer. Honestly, I might finish this off by just take this grip right here and mask it, because it looks really good. Then it'll look different than the rest. I'm just gonna filler primer it. I might only hit it once because I don't want to remove the texture from within here because it's a pretty fine detail. One of these days I'm gonna get a resin printer and things like this would be a little better, so I don't have to worry about detail disappearing whenever I print and sand things.
We've got pooling.
Okay, this shot probably looks horrible, but it doesn't matter. We're gonna let this stuff dry. Let me check the can. How long does this primer have to sit? Allow it to dry for 2 to 4 hours. So I'm gonna give it at least 3 hours before I sand those. This stock, I think it needs more glazing putty back here just to smooth it out. So I'm gonna go out to the shed, get that, and come back. So guess who found his gloves right after spraying the majority of the filler primer? I'm just a genius, man. I forgot to check the shed. So what I've done here is like how I've coated the rest of the parts. Got some glazing putty, and I got a rubber spatula from TJ Maxx to make it easier to apply the glazing putty. I spread it all across, and then I kind of hold it vertical to scrape more off, so it comes off flush. There's some like scarring and stuff around here. And what's nice is you can either use the end if you want less, like if you want it to have a looser grip on the part you're leveling out, or if you need more resistance, you can use the side. And I think the flexibility makes it really easy to get the putty on and get it on in like more even coats. So this is glazing putty you can get from AutoZone. I like to look at most of my stuff in like in-person stores, just because there's so many supplies out there that it's hard to know what's good. So it gets easier whenever I can like talk to somebody and be like, hey man, I'm trying to do this. Do you think this will be any good? Or, hey man, do people generally have a good time with this? Or do people return these all the time? And, you know, I can get my questions answered. Because Amazon really starts to feel more like AliExpress more and more by the day. Where, like, there's all sorts of sketchy shit on there. I don't know what's good and what's not. You can't trust reviews because bot swarms can write those so easily. Okay, I'm kind of like pushing and pulling to get the excess off here. It's dirty, but it is what it is. So I'm gonna have to vent the fumes in here. It's gonna get really cold in here though. All right, so now we're down to sanding next. This stuff is dry. I got through one pass on this. Yoda lightsaber. I'm gonna need to pass over this stuff and smooth it out. So I'm gonna put on a YouTube video and just do a time lapse and do a little sanding, and we will come back once I'm done with that. So, end of day one, I'm gonna clean up and go home. Actually, like, this took me like an hour straight to get sanded, and I'm pretty happy with how it came out, all things considered. So, all right, day one done.